Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sketch to Sea. This episode is a continuation on Flying Yachts Part 1. If you haven't watched that yet and aren't sure what I'm talking about, I'll put a link to that video here. But just as a refresher, I'm referring to the concept yachts out there that promise you luxury cruising experience while hydrofoiling at 40 knots. Spurred by viewer questions, I'm discussing what you need to consider when getting involved in a never-been-done-before build. Factors that go into making a yacht fly, whether technology has come far enough to make something like this possible, and whether getting involved in the build of a concept yacht is ultimately worth it. What do you think the verdict is? You'll just have to stay tuned to find out. Alright, let's get into it. In the last episode, I left off discussing some of the fundamental equipment that are required on a liveaboard yacht and the weights associated with them. I discussed that either for life support or comfort reasons, some of these systems could not be removed, and that has a serious impact on your weight and therefore the reality of your yacht flying. As we go forward, I'm going to move away from the physical elements involved in contracting the yacht and continue through that list of considerations for new builds I made in the first episode. Again, that list was contracting, pricing, construction, and suppliers, classification, and registration. Okay, let's talk about pricing. How would you go about pricing a yacht that has never been built before? How would you estimate the man-hours required for its construction? Only once you've completely nailed down all the above-mentioned items can you even begin to guesstimate on pricing, and what's feasible is really up for debate. For some of these yachts that are promising flying hulls and high speed, 100% of the yacht will have to be built using strictly pre-preg carbon fibers. Being the first of its kind, you would need to do a significant amount of destructive testing to make sure that the pieces perform up to the level that they were engineered to. When Cookson Boats and Morelli and Melvin built PlayStation, the first maxi cat in the world, they brought in a pre-preg specialist from Boeing to advise. Yes, I said Boeing. They were told that Boeing would spend 2 years designing and building the building procedure alone, while Cookson had the most experienced build team in the world, and the yacht was actually completed successfully in 2 years. You can imagine the time and the costs that would have been associated with getting this sort of expert consultation throughout a 2-year development period. In addition to those costs, the specific material costs for everything will be much higher, as most components will need to be custom. One of my principal concerns for someone getting involved with a new yard on a never-been-done-before build would be that the initial deposit is used to set up the yard. And then when you're halfway through your construction budget, you won't even have a floatable hull. The company could spend all of your money coming up with the designs and the renderings, and that's where it would end, on the engineer's desk, as it eventually would be decided that the project is impossible with current construction methods and technology. Next, let's talk about construction. The how in this whole equation is a big concern for me for a few reasons. Some yards are being set up in new locations in countries that can cut costs by using unskilled labor, for example, the UAE. With a new yard building a yacht that's the first of its kind using unskilled labor supervised by skilled laborers, I see a number of construction and development issues that will likely lead to extensive delays, as everything could have to be done several times. You may also encounter price fluctuations based on wasted materials. Not to mention the time and the cost of setting up the yard for these sophisticated construction techniques that would be required. For example, some of these proposed builds, they will need a 120-foot long dust-free oven in order to cure the structural elements of the yacht. This also leads to the question of how the yard plans on funding construction. Do they have enough funds to float the build cost during the stages of construction? HH catamarans are carbon experts and have built more full carbon catamarans than anybody else out there. When they originally started building under the Gunboat brand, they used a similar model. Over the years, many of those unskilled laborers have become quite well equipped with the necessary know-how and techniques that lead to an efficient build in both cost and quality. This is something that you cannot purchase. Only build experience can get you here. In this vein, I would also be thinking about the quality control. It's going to be tough to manage the 100,000 parts that will need to go into this yacht with primarily unskilled labor. Just think, there are an estimated 160,000 man-hours involved in building our 88. Do you really think that the supervisors will be able to catch enough of what's going on to ensure quality and safety? I could be completely off base here, as I've never visited these yards or had conversations with management. But I have traveled to the UAE and know how many, or most, of the construction projects were run as they expanded their cities and countries. Suppliers would be a complete other issue that would need to be tackled. The short of it is that I just don't think there are companies out there that are currently making the items that you will require in these yachts at the specific weights in order for you to get the experience that is being promised. A lot of the suppliers are also in development of their own products when you get to boats of this size, and supplier equipment failure and improper design is common. This is something to be very wary about with the specification and the contracting. Often these super yachts are out of action not because of builder problems, but equipment problems. Next, you have classification and registration. When I did briefly discuss some of these new projects with Paul Hakes, he brought up the fact that there may not be anybody out there that can register or class yachts of this size and new design. We went through some difficulty with our own yacht in this area as well. Technically, because we are over 80 feet, we fall under MGN 280 regulations. If you read the rules carefully, the length of the yacht is measured from halfway up the bow to the beginning of the rudder stock. In order to not be hit with the MGN 280 rules, we move the rudder stock forward a touch and reverse the bows a bit more aggressively. Because we were no longer bound by MGN 280, Reno was able to certify our yacht. Now we can register the yacht anywhere in the world, use the yacht anywhere for personal or for charter, and have full insurance globally. James Hakes pointed out that there are currently no rules for the classification of hydrogen yachts. So that is an added risk on a new build of a hydrogen-powered yacht. How would an insurance company look at the system? You could potentially be stuck without insurance or the ability to register the yacht, which would cause serious issues trying to cross international boundaries with an unregistered vessels. And if you did fall under MGN 280, you're $5 million plus in expense and a minimum of 3 tons of fire suppression equipment. Using the above metrics that are out there for flying yachts, at 100 feet in length, you would have to be close to 10 to 12 metric tons fully loaded in order to fly. The G4 was 4 tons at 40 feet, and the AC-75s are 8 tons at 75 feet, and they had a $400 million budget. The Gunboat 68s are around 21 metric tons, HH-66 Flash and Nemo are 20 and 16 tons respectively. Even if we use the 2.5x metric of efficiency for the new wing sail, that means your vessel's weight could be 25 tons absolute max, and I think it would still have an issue getting out of the water. Some of these companies are proposing non-articulating wing sails like the one shown here. Note how the confused air cannot properly flow around this sail. This creates dead spots that will not produce lift, and therefore you lose sail efficiency. In the most recent America's Cup yachts, they used a twin laminate sail like this image here. With the flexibility associated with it, it does not produce the same dead spots. I think this is a much more efficient sail, and that is why they were used on the AC-75s. Both the gunboat and HHs are blue water fast cruising cats that can be permanent liveaboards, where the G4 is maybe a weekender. I think this is a much more realistic proposal. So, the proposed concept is a 45-knot foiling super yacht that can only actually foil when all luxuries are removed. However, it will have handicapped performance as there are systems like firefighting equipment, plumbing, wiring, etc. that cannot be removed, leaving it not as efficient as a purpose-built foiler. It is also worth noting that the structure will be overbuilt for foiling, as it all needs to be designed for the maximum weight of the boat, not for the boat in light condition. So instead, how about a revolutionary super yacht design that is comfortable and luxurious at 30 to 35 knots, that can deploy a smaller 45-knot purpose-built foiling boat for fun, like an aircraft carrier deploying a fighter jet, rather than a carrier that dumps all its interior then tries to fly. I'm going to leave you with that thought today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have not already, please like, subscribe, and share. A small click from you goes a long way for us. Please follow our build on Instagram and Facebook. And as always, if you have any questions or just want to talk yachts, please reach out to me at skepticy@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you again soon.